I live on the 17th floor, 17 floors of separation from the ground, from the dark alleys and the late-night street vendors. I used to think it was the ultimate form of safety. A fortress of concrete and glass, guarded by uniformed security and the indifferent beep of a keycard system. I was wrong. Fear doesn't need to take the stairs. It has its own private elevator, and it always knows which room you're in. My job is a freelance illustrator. That means long, solitary nights with just me, my computer screen, and commissions from all over the world. And, of course, meals delivered to my door. Fast food became a ritual. A salvation from the hunger that strikes at 2 in the morning. That's how I met him. He was unremarkable. A skinny delivery guy in the uniform of a popular food app. His name was Hung. At least that's the name that showed up on the app. The first time, he just handed me a box of chicken rice and smiled. A smile that was a little too wide, that didn't quite fit his gaunt face. "Enjoy your meal, sir." His voice was a flat, emotionless monotone. The second time, it was him again. The third time, still him. I started to find it strange. The system was supposed to be random, but it seemed like every order I placed, no matter the time, no matter the restaurant, ended up in his hands. Maybe I'm overthinking it, I told myself. This city is big, but coincidences happen. Then he started talking, casual remarks, but in hindsight they were stones dropped into a lake to test its depth. "Working late again on your drawing, sir? I can see your light on from the courtyard. I lived on the 17th floor. It was impossible to see the light of a single apartment from the courtyard. I just laughed it off, thinking he was joking. The unease began to sprout when he started bringing me things I didn't order. An energy drink. A gift from me, sir, to help you stay awake." He pressed it into my hand, his fingers cold and dry. I felt awkward. It was rude to refuse. But accepting it felt like I was agreeing to something beyond a simple transaction. I had entered a game without knowing the rules. Things escalated on a rainy night. I ordered a hot bowl of pho. He arrived, soaking wet. He handed me the food, and then his eyes flickered past my shoulder into my apartment. "The plant you have near the window looks a bit withered," he said in that same flat tone. "You should give it some water." I froze. My pothos plant. It sat in the far corner of my living room, completely out of sight from the doorway. There was no way he could have seen it unless he had been inside my home before. I slammed the door shut. My heart hammered like a trapped bird against my ribs. I ran and checked everything. The windows were locked, no signs of a break-in, but the feeling of being watched, of being invaded, had taken root in my mind. I became paranoid. I checked the lock 10 times a day. I started wedging a chair under the doorknob when I slept. I tried switching delivery apps. I chose a different company, a brand new name. I ordered a pizza at 3 in the afternoon, an unusual time for me. I held my breath and waited. The doorbell rang. I peered through the peephole. It was him. Still him, but in the uniform of the new company. He looked directly into the peephole as if he knew I was there. He smiled. That smile now looked like a gash across his face. "I knew you'd be hungry," he said through the door. That's when I knew this wasn't a coincidence. This was a hunt. He was controlling the network. He was manipulating the system. I was his prey, and the modern world of technology was the cage he had built. I called the customer service hotlines for both companies. They listened with feigned patience. "We will look into it, sir. The relevant department will contact you." But no one ever called back. To them, I was just a paranoid customer, a number in the system. And he was a diligent partner. I stopped ordering food. I started cooking for myself. Simple, tasteless meals. But at least I thought I had severed the connection to him. I had locked myself in my fortress, eating dry rations and drinking tap water. I thought I had won, but his game had only just begun. One evening I was working when my phone vibrated, a notification from the delivery app I had long since deleted. "Your order is on its way. Driver Hung is en route." I hadn't ordered anything. The blood in my veins turned to ice. I stared at the screen, watching the red dot representing him move across the map. He was getting closer, closer, and then it stopped right at the base of my building. My phone vibrated again. A text message from him. I brought you some onion porridge. Good for a cold. I didn't have a cold. I turned off my phone and threw it in a corner. I sat in the dark, holding my breath, listening. There was no doorbell, nothing, just silence. A silence that was more terrifying than any knock. He was playing with me. He wanted me to know that he could come whenever he wanted, that whether I ordered or not was irrelevant. The psychological terror continued. Every day I received ghost notifications, sometimes a pizza, sometimes bubble tea. He was showing me a menu of my fears, and then he started leaving physical traces. One morning I opened my door to take out the trash and saw my doormat had been shifted to the left by a few centimeters. A tiny, almost imperceptible change. But I knew. I moved it back. The next day it was shifted again. This was his territory. He was marking it like a feral animal. My patience ran out. Fear had curdled into a cold, silent rage. I decided to fight back. I installed a tiny security camera disguised in a fake plant in the hallway, pointed directly at my door. And I waited. 2 days later, I got the footage I was waiting for. At 3 in the morning, when the entire building was asleep, a figure appeared in the 17th floor hallway. It was him. He hadn't taken the elevator. It seemed he had taken the stairs. He approached my door. He didn't try the lock. He just stood there. He placed something on my doormat. A single white rose. Then he knelt. He pressed his ear against the crack at the bottom of the door, as if listening to my breathing from inside. He stayed there for nearly 10 minutes, just kneeling and listening. Then he stood up and silently left. I watched the footage over and over. The stillness of his actions was more frightening than any act of violence. He wasn't a common criminal. He was a worshipper, and I was the saint at whose altar he was performing his sick rituals. I deleted the footage. I knew it was useless. The police would do nothing. I had only one option: to run. I packed my things in a frenzy, throwing clothes and computer hard drives into a suitcase. I would leave this city, disappear without a trace. I booked the earliest bus ticket for the next morning. That night was my last in my fortress on the 17th floor. I sat amidst cardboard boxes in an empty apartment. I hadn't turned on the lights. I didn't want him to know I was still awake. And then, around midnight, it happened. The lights in my apartment went out. The entire 17th floor was plunged into a thick, suffocating darkness. It wasn't a building-wide power outage, just my unit. The silence became absolute. The hum of the refrigerator vanished. The whistle of the wind through the window cracks seemed louder. In that darkness, my phone screen lit up. Its light was a ghostly beacon, a text message, not from the app, from an unknown number. It contained only a single line. "It's dark. Should I come up and help you change the light bulb?" My body went numb. The air was trapped in my throat. He was no longer in the courtyard. He was no longer in the hallway. He was in the building. He had accessed my electrical system. He had cut me off from the world. And then I heard it. Not a loud buzzer, not a frantic pounding, but a knock on the door. Very slow, very deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. The knock of someone who knows for certain that you are home and knows that you have nowhere left to run.